If you're not doing these things ahead of your wildcard decision ahead of Game Week 30 and FPL Game Week 31, then I don't know what you're doing. In this video, we're going to be discussing the best players to bring in on your wildcard team, the teams with the best fixtures in the short term, the teams with the best fixtures in the long term, because when you're wildcarding, you got to be prepared for the end of the season as well. We're going to be talking about the free hit chip and all the chip strategies if you had all your chips available to you in FPL going forward. So if you're an FPL fan and you're not subscribed to this channel, do hit subscribe. This is the place to be for daily FPL content. And drop a like as well if you enjoy. It'd be very greatly appreciated. And let's start off with the fixture ticker. These are the fixtures going forward till the end of the season. Who has the best fixtures and then all the way down to the bottom and who has the worst. Now, we don't actually have the double game weeks involved in this yet. So this actually, right now, isn't the most helpful. But it's definitely interesting in the long run for the teams there. As you can see, Wolves have got the best fixture now until the end of the season. Then you look at Nottingham Forest, who actually have the best run of fixtures, second best run of fixtures until the end of the season, and they might also double in game week 33. So Nottingham Forest could be a team to target in your wildcard. As well as that, Man City got a very likely chance of a double game week coming up, so own a couple of City players. We'll discuss who to own and what players later on in the video, but I'd say Man City could be a very good team to target. Newcastle as well, they've already got that double game week in game week 32, so there's a double game week there that's already locked in. We already know about that, so Newcastle's an absolute no-brainer, and having an isak captaincy on that week is an absolute no-brainer, so probably a trip up on Newcastle is the way to go going forward. We know Arsenal as well have a potential double game week coming in game week 33 as well, so that's another team that we could definitely be looking to target on our wildcard. But when the FA Cup results actually do happen, that's when we'll know what teams exactly are going to be doubling, and then we can kind of gear our team towards them. There's also Bournemouth as well, got a pretty good, got a chance of getting that double game week 33 as well, and they're up there for the fixture ticket in the next 8 game weeks until the end of the season, that is. So those are the teams that do look like they have the best fixtures in the long run, but as I say, we need to wait for them FA Cup results to see who's actually going to be doubling in game week 33. As for in the short term, looking at the fixtures there, you've got Arsenal there, you've got Bournemouth there, you've got Newcastle, Forest, Aston Villa, Man City, all these teams, Southampton we're not going to go for, Brighton as well. You've got a lot of those teams that have got very good fixtures coming up that all have a decent opportunity of getting that double game week in game week 33 due to the fact that they are in the FA Cup. You're looking at the likes of, well, Arsenal's opponents are actually in the FA Cup in game week 34, so they could actually get moved. Then you're looking at it, Bournemouth also playing the FA Cup. Newcastle, we know that double in 32, so they already have a double game week guaranteed. Then you have Nottingham Forest, and if they go through in the FA Cup, then they do get a double in 33. Brighton are also still in the FA Cup as well. And then you look at Aston Villa, who's in the FA Cup, who play against Preston. And then Man City are also in the FA Cup, and Southampton's opponents are also in the FA Cup. So the teams that have the good fixtures coming up in the short term, you wouldn't say all, but like there's a strong likelihood in quite a few of those teams then going on to double in 33, which only makes them better options in the short term. So the teams there that I've just mentioned are very good teams to be targeting going forward. Now, a team that I want to talk about is Crystal Palace, which are getting a lot of mentions at the moment due to the fact they do play Southampton next. If you're looking at it in isolation, what the next fixture is, what the next best fixture is in game week 30, it has to be Crystal Palace playing against that Southampton team away. Also, as well as Man City playing against Leicester. We'll discuss that later on in the video. But as I say, Crystal Palace assets in the next few weeks do look like really good options going forward, because the fixture after that is Brighton, which isn't a too bad game, but then you do get that double game week against Manchester City and Newcastle, which isn't the best double game week granted, but Crystal Palace are also in the FA Cup, and they could potentially then double in game week 33 if they do knock Fulham out of the FA Cup as well. So that could be back-to-back doubles for Crystal Palace assets, and as I say, they're doing very well at the moment. They're in form, and they've got a few good fixtures coming up in the short term as well. As I say, back-to-back doubles is the main reason why we want to be going for them Crystal Palace assets. And let's discuss the 3 Crystal Palace assets that I will be choosing in my wildcard if I was to wildcard this week. There's a lot of options, to be fair. Now, I'll actually rank these from best to worst in terms of my Crystal Palace assets, in terms of the way that I would be picking them personally. So number 1 for me is Daniel Munoz. Now, you've got to be aware that he is actually on international duty, and Oliver Glasner has spoken about maybe managing his minutes, but I'm sure he'll be absolutely fine. He plays 90 minutes every single week, pretty much, and the way that he's going at the moment, he's an absolute no-brainer in terms of a Crystal Palace asset. 5.1 million, still good value, and look at them returns. You know, clean sheet against Ipswich. If he doesn't get attacking contribution, he normally gets a clean sheet. Just one game in game 25 there on the screen that he actually didn't get a return or didn't get a clean sheet in, which was a game against Everton. Other than that, he is actually returned in every single other week on that screen there. So the guy's in an absolutely incredible form. Gets so far forward in that Crystal Palace team, and as I say, the way Palace are playing, they look good defensively. And Daniel Munoz, look at his numbers as well. His numbers are very impressive. He is outperforming his expected numbers, but as I say, he's so good going forward and he gets into them positions where he's just an absolute no-brainer into your FPL team, in my opinion. So my second option would be Mateta. Now, we don't know if he's 100% fit yet. Do stay tuned for that. I'll let you know later on to the deadline. But at the moment, things coming out of Crystal Palace are quite positive. Apparently, he's at the Crystal Palace training ground every day. He's in close communication with the doctor, and it's the doctor's decision whether or not he'll play or not. But he does sound quite positive from when he's spoken recently. And the way that Mateta has been this season, and the way in recent weeks, especially since the turn of the year, has been absolutely unbelievable. And if he's 100% fit on a wildcard, I think he's just got to be locked into your team realistically. Decent value at 7.5 million with the fixtures and the double game weeks potentially coming up, and the form that he's in at the moment as well. You look at that: a goal against Aston Villa, assist against Fulham, goal against Everton, and 2 goals against Man United. He's in red hot form right now, and you're looking at it going forward. As I say, Southampton up next is just such a good fixture to have Mateta. If he's going to be fit for that game, he's a genuine I wouldn't say he's a captain option just due to the fact you've got Salah and Haaland against Leicester and Everton. At the end of the day, it's Mo Salah. But at this point, Mateta is going to be a differential as well, because not many people are going to get him in unless you're on a wild card, unless you maybe have one for a transfer and you choose to bring him Mateta. But he's not going to be heavily owned going into the next game week. He's going to be a decent amount owned, but you still consider him as a differential for probably the people at the top of the ranks. Not everybody will be owning Mateta. So for me, if Mateta is 100% fit, I do think he is the second best option. Now, the third best option for me is Ismaila Sarr. Now, it depends on the situation of your team and how you want to structure it, because you might want to go for some different players in different positions, and there's a lot of strong FPL midfielders. So if you want to go for the next player I'll talk about in a minute, then that is absolutely fair enough. But as I say, Ismaila Sarr I think is the best midfielder. There's also Eze as well, which I have to discuss. Eze is obviously about £1 million more expensive than Ismaila Sarr, so you've got to take that into consideration. Sarr's been in better form than Eze in the last 2 weeks. I think that's pretty fair to say. He has been a bit frustrating before that. But then Eze as well. Eze's not been in the best form as well either, to be honest. He's just got 1 assist in the last 6 game weeks. So Eze hasn't been great in recent weeks. Ismaila Sarr looks the more form player, and as I say, it's that £1 million cheaper that you're getting with Ismaila Sarr. I wouldn't say Eze is a bad option, because we've seen Eze last season especially, how good he actually was and how good of an FPL option he is. He's just not really showed it consistently enough over the course of this season. Ismaila Sarr has picked up more points than Eze, and as I say, I think Ismaila Sarr in recent weeks has looked a lot more threatening in terms of getting into goal-scoring positions than Eberici Eze. But if you wanted to go for Eze, then that's absolutely fair enough. But for me, I personally do just prefer Ismaila Sarr as my third best Palace option. But as I say, of course, it is team dependent. If you want to maybe go for a different midfielder, you prefer the other midfield options to Ismaila Sarr, then the other answer is probably just to go for Dean Henderson. I believe he's the third highest scoring keeper over the course of this season so far. Picked up a 10-point against Ipswich. He's got a few double-digit hauls, to be fair, this season. And as I say, Palace over recent weeks, their defence has improved massively since the turn of the year. Their defensive numbers is very good, and as well as that, they're actually picking up consistent clean sheets as well. And Dean Henderson does get a few saving points here and there as well, especially, as I say, against Ipswich. That 10 points was absolutely incredible. So I do think Dean Henderson is a very good option. He will be my 4th best Crystal Palace option personally. But as I say, it's team dependent. If you wanted to go for a different 5-man midfield, and then you still want to get that Crystal Palace player in, for me, I do think Dean Henderson would be the next best in my personal opinion. Also, as well as that, we do know that Newcastle do double game week in game week 32. We're playing against Man United and Crystal Palace. So you'd say that's a pretty nice double game week when you look at it. Man United are obviously in the bottom half. Crystal Palace, as I say, have been in very good form, but it's not a bad second game, and it's the only double in game week 32, so you're going to want to really attack that double game week. And the fixtures around that as well is the key thing that we want to discuss here. They're very good fixtures around it. Brentford up next, which Brentford has been actually very good recently away from home, so it might not be an easy fixture there, but you wouldn't say it's a bad fixture. Then you're looking at a game week 31, unbelievable fixture against Leicester. Leicester's home form is terrible. They haven't scored a home goal in 7 games. They're getting pretty much battered every week, and the mood at Leicester isn't good at all. And Newcastle, after winning that Carabao Cup, spirit should be high, and I'm sure Newcastle will do well in that game against Leicester. Then you look at it, you've got the double game week in 32, which of course you want to be targeting that. Game week 33, of course, they don't blank. They don't actually double in game week 33, but they also then don't blank in game week 34. So having Newcastle players isn't too bad at all, in my opinion, in game week 33. You can maybe transfer one out, but then you look at it, in that blank game week, they do have Ipswich, but most of us will be free hitting, so we'll be free hitting Newcastle players in anyway. But if you already own them, then fair enough, you know what I mean? So, yeah, the fixtures coming up are very nice. You look at that whole run of fixtures. The only real tough game is probably, Villa away, Brighton away, but you wouldn't say that Newcastle can't get anything out of them games, and they can definitely still score goals. I've seen Isak, how good he's been in recent weeks and over the course of this season and last season since he's come to the Premier League. There's a lot of good options, so we'll discuss the options from Newcastle and how I'd be ranking my personal Newcastle options in a triple up. Number one, of course, we don't need to discuss this too much. Alexander Isak, I think he'll be the number one captain in game week 32. He's got that double game week, which nobody else has. He'll pretty much be captained by everybody, so you've really got to be going with Isak just due to the fact of that. And then, as I say, the fixtures around it are also very nice as well. So Alexander Isak is pretty much just a no-brainer in a wildcard team, in game week 30 wildcard team, and a game week 31 wildcard team. Alexander Isak's just got to be in there because he's going to be a captain in game week 32. Now, as the second best option, I'm actually going to go for Anthony Gordon. Now, I know he hasn't been in great form of recent. He hasn't got many returns at all, and he really has fallen off, to be fair, in terms of his output, because he had a spell where he was getting pretty consistent returns. Not spectacular, no double-digit hauls, but he was getting returns every single match, pretty much. And they have dried up, and he has also got suspended in the FA Cup game against Brighton. He got a red card, so he's not actually available in game week 30. So in a game week 30 wildcard, maybe I wouldn't be going for a Gordon, but in a game week 31 wildcard, which a lot of people are doing, I think Anthony Gordon probably is the second best option. And going into that Leicester game and then the double game week, there's no doubt Anthony Gordon will be so popular going into that week. So it could be quite risky going without him the way that things are going at the moment, with the way that people are planning to use their wildcard in game week 31. I think Anthony Gordon will be so popular, and as I say, he is a good player. He's just not got the returns recently, but I'm sure they'll come good when he's playing against Leicester. Pretty much everybody returns against Leicester. Now, there is a few options at the back for Newcastle. Now, I personally like Dan Burn the most. Livramento we've also got on screen as well. He kind of gets subbed off quite a bit, to be fair. He gets subbed off too much of my liking. Obviously, Lewis Hall has recently picked up an injury, so that will probably boost Livramento's minutes. He can play left back and right back, of course, as can like a Kieran Trippier. But his minutes just haven't been secure enough. I do think he's a better option than Dan Burn if they both had 90 minutes, but as I say, Livramento, you've not got that guaranteed 90 minutes. You don't want to have a player that gets subbed off after just before 60 minutes and then you don't get that clean sheet points and the extra appearance point. So for me, I do just think Dan Burn is that more nailed option. He's played 90 minutes pretty much every single time he's on the pitch for Newcastle. He's also 0.1 cheaper than Livramento as well, which, I mean, it is handy that he's a little bit cheaper, I guess. And as I say, Dan Burn, he's nailed on and he's playing in a Newcastle defence, which, I mean, they haven't kept a load of clean sheets, but as I say, with the fixtures coming up, the double game week, you do want to be attacking that double game week and having 3 Newcastle players. So I do like the look of Dan Burn as a Newcastle defender, as my personal one for the Newcastle defence personally. But then there's also Nick Pope as well. So if you wanted to go for that, you could either go for a Henderson or a Nick Pope. I do think he'll be very popular over the next few weeks. And as I say, Nick Pope has just recently come back into the side after coming back from injury. I mean, I've seen Dubravka. Dubravka's been frustrated that he hasn't been in that starting 11 and he hasn't kept his place. So Dubravka could potentially come in at some point if Pope does make any mistakes. He's not absolutely 100% nailed. I mean, he is for the next couple of weeks, but if he makes a mistake, you never know. There could be pressure on him because Dubravka did so well when Pope was injured. But as I say, Nick Pope's pretty nailed on. So if you wanted to go for a Pope, then that is absolutely fair enough because, as I say, he's got the double game week still, and if you wanted to go for different defenders, then it's absolutely fair enough. So I'd say Pope then is the next best option after Dan Burn personally. And then just looking at an example wildcard team that I'd be going for in game week 30 or game week 31, realistically the teams will be quite similar in my personal opinion. Now Mo Salah, even though he doesn't double in 33, he's an absolute lock-in my opinion just because he's too risky to go without. I will be going for either Haaland or Marmoush. I'm discussing Man City as well. They've got a good run of fixtures coming up. And as well as that, of course, they've got a very high chance of getting a double in 33 because of the FA Cup. And then as well as that, they do play Leicester this week as well. So if you're on a wild card this week, I do think I'd probably be going for 2 City players, either Haaland or Marmoush, one of the two. And then as well as that, probably Gvardiol at the back, I'd say, is Man City's next best option, realistically. They're not exactly blessed with a load of FPL options, in my personal opinion. Up front, I do just think the best attack is Haaland, Mateta and Isak. I've discussed Isak the double game week. Mateta has the double game week as well, potentially back-to-back doubles. If Mateta's fit, I think he's an absolute lock-in my opinion. Then going to midfield, we've already discussed Gordon. I think he's a great option. Maybe not a double ball with midfield. I think it depends, obviously, if they get the double game week or not. Semenyo is 1 yellow card off another suspension, so that's something that you need to keep in mind. I think Justin Clive is pretty much a nail on, especially if he gets that double game week in 33. He is absolutely one that's got to be in your teams. Hoyston as well is another player that's very good. If he gets that double for Bournemouth, then he's a great option. Munoz have already discussed, unbelievable option. There's Henderson that I've discussed as well, very good option with the double game weeks. Then just looking at the bench, Areola and West Ham have got a chance for double game week. So Areola using that bench boost in 33 could be the way to go forward because he's probably the cheapest keeper that's playing as well that could potentially double game week right now. Then you have Elanga, who's also got the chance for double game week, cheap midfielder. On that bench boost will be perfect to have. Nico Williams is another one, as I say, cheap, and he's got that double game week potentially in game week 33. So a great option there, Nico Williams is. If Nottingham Forest, of course, go through in the FA Cup, they have to go through in that match. They are the favourites in the game. I believe they're playing Brighton. Might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure they're playing Brighton. And as I say, Nottingham Forest are the favourites in that game. So if they got through, then they could have a double game week, and owning 2 Nottingham Forest players at least is probably the way to go. Maybe even a Chris Wood can come back into our thinking if he does double in game week 33 as well. And then Livramento on the bench there, of course. You could maybe, as I say, I prefer a Dan Burn personally. But if you want to go for him, then that's fair enough. So that's a wildcard team that's kind of really looking to attack them double game week 33. But then you also then, you probably will need your free hit chip after that for game week 34. So if you have your free hit chip, that's the kind of wildcard team that I would be looking at personally, because you're attacking the doubles, just free hit out of it in 34, and you've got no issues whatsoever. And you've got the double game weeks in 32 as well for Newcastle and Crystal Palace. You got double game weeks there if Bournemouth win their FA Cup game. Then you got doubles for Bournemouth. You got doubles for Man City. And you've also got doubles for Nottingham Forest as well. So you've got a good chance of some real good points there when you're attacking them double game week fixtures. Let me know what you think of that team. If you've enjoyed the video, drop a like down below. Subscribe to the channel as well. It'd be very greatly appreciated. If you watch this point, you may as well subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.